I got it. And welcome everyone. Happy New Year's Day. It's the start of a bright, shiny new year. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm thrilled that you carved the time out today out of your busy lives and a holiday to come be here on a Saturday on the first day of the year. I'm very aware that you could choose to be anywhere today and humbled that you came here, and I promise it will be worth your while. I saw a new distinction that made my heart sing about how to put two disparate pieces of work that we had been working with over the last 2 years, put them together in a new way that will allow for you to have more clarity, more choice in every day, and move in an easier fashion and a more consistent fashion toward the big goals and dreams that you have going forward. So no matter what we bring, I mean, this is the top of 2022, and it's been a funny couple of years, goodness knows. And a lot of people have a lot of dread going into the new year, or definitely fatigue from being inside and worry about the news and all the things. And we're going to look at something outside of that entirely. I honestly, truly have such a deep spidey sense on the inside that we're actually walking into a beautiful, beautiful new year because we have the tools to have inner agency and to really find a calm in the middle of the storm and peace no matter what's happening out in the world. There's something new that I'm finding, something new that my clients are finding, in particular, the small group people and the private coaching people that I'm able to be with intimately, and the people in the Procrastination Cure Club. We're noticing something new, and I'm so profoundly grateful for that. So today, I just wanted to have this free call, this training, and share it with you so that you might go into the world in a new way, because the way we ended things is the way we begin things, and this is an opportunity to begin something in a really fresh, new, exciting way. So for today's format, uh, I mentioned to my co-pilot, the beautiful Jolene, who is helping to read the chat because I'm not able to really be present with you and delivering the information and also reading the chat. But feel free to write in anything that you wish, any questions that you have, any notices that you have, and I will trust Jolene to bring them to my attention. Jolene, you can interrupt me whenever you wish. And I'll also ask periodically what we're noticing. And then that way I can respond to those things in real time. So again, if you're just joining now, I'm delighted that you carved time out of your busy day on New Year's, on a holiday, to be here with us, and you won't be sorry. This will be fantastic. So as we begin, I'm going to ask that we drop into our bodies just a minute, because I am breaking a rule a little bit. I alluded to this a second ago. When you do a training like this, particularly a brief one, because I don't want to keep you on the line all day, uh, there's a recommendation to only give 3 points and just make it easy for people to consume that, absorb it. And that's a kindness usually. But today I'm asking you to call back from some stuff that we looked at a couple of years ago, and then some new distinctions from this year, and put them together in a new way. So it might feel a little bit like you're fire hosed. And the way that we're going to handle that is two ways. One is there'll be a recording here, so you don't have to feel like you got to get it all in your head right now. So let's all together take a big breath into your belly, please. Just a big breath in and let it out, and just let your shoulders drop just a little bit. Thank you. So we can let go of all the pressure that you need to get all the details and figure it out and understand it all right in this red hot minute. It's going to be here for you. And as we turn our attention here, what we know and what we've really looked at this much more deeply this year, much more deeply, is about accessing our unconscious parts, not trying to filter everything through the top brain. So I'm just checking, would you be willing, if this could be easy and relaxed and you were just a little in that nice fuzzy receiving place, would you be willing to have all the information go in and even maybe bypass your top brain just a little bit so that it could go in deeply? You could plant the seeds for new growth and it would come out and make itself evident at another time. Would that be okay? And go ahead and just write yep or yes or something in the chat so I can see if we have agreement there. I'm seeing some come in. That's fantastic. Thank you. So as we now begin today, let's take a moment just to honor ourselves and honor our body. And most importantly, honor all of those unconscious parts on the inside because they're really listening now. They know that we're not ignoring them or stuffing them down like many of us usually do, but they're happy to be welcomed. They're happy to be here. So let's access that by just taking a moment to turn our attention to the inside, just settling in, settling down, noticing your bum in the seat wherever you are. If you happen to be driving later and listening to this or driving now, then please stay alert. But other than that, please drop in now, even a little more deeply, and notice how wonderful it feels to realize that you're supported by gravity right here all the time. Nothing you need to earn, nothing that you need to do. No striving is necessary. No efforting is necessary just by being you, a human alive on this pretty little planet right now. Gravity has your back. So we're just taking a moment to bring our attention there and just say, oh, wow. Another deep breath into the belly. And you might have been feeling the way many people have been feeling. You might have been in training to the way many people have been feeling, thinking, I have no support. You actually do all the time. All the universal forces are on your side, and gravity has your back right now, whether you remember it or you don't. And right now, we're turning our attention to remember it, which will help our reticular activating system reset and say, oh, now I'm looking for the ways I'm supported rather than evidence for how I'm not. Very good. And I'm aware that some people watching are wondering what my hands are doing. It's just an energy ability that happens when I coach or speak or perform, and it's not significant. It's just a perceiving and a directing of energy that can enhance our communication back and forth today and enhance whatever is meant to be received over there. So thanks for understanding that. Okay. Now, one more time, turning our attention on the inside to all those unconscious parts and just saying, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. We see you. I see you. Whether your human sees you right now or not is okay. You're honored here. You're welcomed here. And thank you for being in service to the person that you help, that you are a part of. And this information today is for you in every single way that you could reorganize and absorb the information today and use it to assist your person to make their life more pleasurable and productive going forward. That would be fantastic. So we're going to cover some ways to do that. We're also going to have some doorways today for more in the future for people that want that too. There's all kinds of choices today, information, free resources, and other ways to get assistance. So thank you for that. Very good. Is there anything I need to turn my attention to, Jolene, from the chat, or we're just ready to roll?
We're just ready to roll.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. And do. Very good. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is to look at how to gain clarity at what you most want going forward into this shiny new year. We're going to look at a surprising way to see, for you to see how what you're doing right now is actually sabotaging your ability to do that, even before you begin. We'll look very clearly at that. We're going to look at two simple ways right off the bat, right at the top of this, that you can put into action today when you leave the webinar that are going to help you get unstuck and that will make it easier for you to take the actions that lead to your dreams so that your dreams could come true. And then, as I mentioned, I'll leave you also with some free resources as well as ways to get more personal help from me for anybody that fits for. Okay, so if you already know what you most desire, which is probably not most people, most people have kind of a vague, fuzzy idea of what they desire, but they also think it's not very possible. And we're going to look at that in a minute. But if, in fact, let's pretend for just a second that we could wave a wand and you already knew with great clarity and precision what you most wanted to have happen this year. The question we always ask is, if you had it all your own way and you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to have happen? So let's pretend that you do know that already. And the sidebar here, what we're looking at, the scope of what we're looking at here is the stuff that is personal to you, that's under your control. So we are in the midst of a pandemic that's gone on for more than a couple of years now. And so we're not going to say things like, if I had it all my own way, COVID would be over and I wouldn't have to wear a mask anymore and I could go out and do all the things, because that's in another realm. That's stuff that you don't have control over, and you'll just make yourself nuts by trying to affirm that. So you can have that as a desire, but the scope of what we're looking at today is what you do, what you want to express, what your desires are to feel the most fulfilled, that you have some power to change. So I'll ask Jolene if that makes sense. Did you get, are people just say, yes, I get it, or no, I haven't got any idea? I'm sorry, you have to keep coming off mute to tell me that. So,
I know, no worries. I think everybody's with you.
okay, thank you. And the other thing about that would be like, here's a distinction. You could say, what I most like to have happen is I would like to have, a beautiful connected marriage, right? That my partner supported me, but you wouldn't go to, because you can kind of generate more of that feeling, and coming from that place where you could be receiving that, you could notice all the times that you are supported, just like we noticed now that we were supported by gravity, and we don't usually take that into consideration. So, but you wouldn't say, well, what I want the most to happen is for my husband to get off the couch more, my husband to do XYZ, my teenager to do whatever. That's their thing, right? We're looking at you. So I hope that that's clear. So back to my slide. If you already know what you most desire and you wanted to get into action and you wanted to tap into the unconscious powerhouse resource to help you there, what we know doesn't actually work well is reciting affirmations that you don't really believe. That's a pain in the neck. And it doesn't matter how many gurus tell you that it should work. What actually happens when you recite affirmations that you don't believe, it leads to cognitive dissonance or inner fighting between the parts of yourself. Part of you wants to achieve the goal and the other part is afraid, or it needs to protect you. And how do we know that that's true? We know that that's true because you haven't got the goal yet. For anything that you have zero resistance and zero parts on the inside in conflict about, then you would have your goal already. So it's okay. This is very natural. It's very human. It's very understandable. But we always have parts that are fighting. And the goal of all of my work is to release the resistance as much as possible, because when we've got resistance happening, we are working against ourselves. We're going very slowly. It's taking a lot of friction and too much energy and bandwidth and all the things, and we're not moving in the direction that we want with speed. But when you have congruency on the inside, and when you can make friends with the parts that are trying to protect you in unusual ways, or maybe ways from when you were young and you were really little, and they have still the idea of a 3-year-old's perspective of how to protect you, perhaps, when we can get that all working again congruently, so all the parts are on board together, then you can move forward. So we don't say affirmations that we don't actually believe, because that creates inner fighting on the inside. But here, right off the bat, are my 2 sneaky tools that I promised to tell you that kind of get around that. It's a way to get around that and help yourself not feel that inner friction and get into action. So the first one you might have heard me say before, and it's a beautiful way. Rather than say, I have $10 million in my bank account, which if you don't have that, you fully don't believe, and you've got that inner fight. All you need to do is have that same idea that juices you up, but add this preamble at the beginning. Make it a question. Gosh, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be like really nice if I had $10 million in the bank? That'd be cool. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So notice, try that in your mind's ear right now and say it, or say it out loud if you can. If you're on mute and you're in the space where you're watching this, wouldn't it be nice if, and fill in the blank with anything else that you want that you haven't let yourself believe you could truly have. And you'll notice as you do that, that it allows a couple of things. It allows you to get into the good feeling place. It allows you to feel satisfied before it's even come true, because you're just saying, wouldn't it be nice if, it doesn't create that inner friction of, you just said it and then another part says, oh, that's ridiculous, and don't allow yourself to hope, and that, and then part is judging you and really mad. You don't go there. If you just say, well, wouldn't it be nice if, it allows you to entertain the feeling state of what you desire without having attachment. So that's the first way. This comes from actually Abraham Hicks, to give them credit. That's where that happened. And we've been using this for quite a while, the wouldn't it be nice tool, and it's a nice way to remember. But I discovered another one, and I've been using it wildly in the last week, and that's going to come up here, which is the second one is in my idea, I am, and fill in the blank. And notice it's an I am because we're keeping the scope on what you are doing in your life. In my idea, I am. I am creating wildly. I am building a wildly successful business that reaches many people. I am contributing to XYZ charity and making an impact in these people's lives, on and on and on. And where does this come from? This requires a little explanation. So, uh, this idea I did visit with some of you in the Procrastination Cure Club, which sidebar is closed right now, but will be reopening in the spring, and some other places on some Zooms. But this comes from uh, Coach Charlie Davis and his Clear Ideas process. And he had this really important distinction, which even if you were here when I talked about this before, you may not remember. But he says, look, when people are trying to nail down what will really make them happy, their desires and their goals and what they really dream of the most of us, very innocently, are polluting that whole process by starting through the filter of what we believe is possible. So take a big breath, just breathe into your belly because it's kind of a big idea. We've all been sold a bill of goods from all of the best intended self-help gurus that want you to say the things and affirm the things and get really clear, but you have to be realistic. Well, in this point, he breaks everything down into two separate areas when you're in your goal setting process, or you're in your dreaming state of deciding, getting clear on what you really like to have happen. There's the world of reality. We all know about the world of reality, and there's the land of ideas. And in the land of ideas, in your imagination, all bets are off. There are no limits. Pigs can fly. Dinosaurs still roam the earth. You could be a fairy princess, like whatever it is that you want. And this, we don't let ourselves ever go here. A, we weren't told that it was useful to go here. And B, we're trying to filter everything through the world of reality so that we don't get our hopes dashed. But the deal is the world of reality isn't actually reality at all. The world of reality contains the filter of all of our programming, all of our limiting beliefs about what we think is possible for us. So for everybody listening to the sound of my voice, you are capable of more. You can receive more. You have more to contribute. You are better than you think you are. You have many more admirable qualities than you know that you have, because you've been filtering through this world of reality that you think is reality, but it's not even real. It's really some reality in terms of what other people think and getting in your car and going to the bank and taking money out, like that kind of reality, brass tacks reality. But it's also the filter of all your beliefs. And if you don't get out of there as you're trying to get clear on what it is that you really want, you will never achieve your full potential, achieve your full satisfaction, allow yourself to have everything that is your birthright that could come to you. And the land of ideas is also more of a pathway to your unconscious, which is where those deep dreams live. In this community, we often talk about dumpster dreams, which is a funny sounding metaphor for those deepest held dreams that you've had since you were a little child and maybe haven't taken action on in a long time. And the way that we hold them is, I have to achieve that thing or else life isn't worth living. Like I must not get to my grave without achieving that thing. But our relationship to that, generally speaking, from our childhood hurts and growing up, is that we have to hide that away. Most of us have to hide that desire away. We can't tell anybody because if they knew, they'd crush it, right? They might stomp on our dreams. So we hide it in a metaphoric dumpster in our unconscious mind, underneath all the trash, the last place anybody would ever look for our desire. And that's where we hide it, metaphorically speaking, except that for many of us, it's been so long since we've ever gone in there, we forgot where we put it. We forgot what it's about. We haven't allowed ourselves to dream our big dreams because we were taught that everything has to get filtered through the world of reality or it's no good. Okay, now I'm going to explain more about how you do this and why it's useful, but I'm going to take one tiny little sidebar in case people are looking at this forever and they're thinking, okay, she's just off her rocker now because you have to be real. Well, you have to be real at the beginning, some of the time when you're trying to put other ideas together. For example, this little sidebar, I've had many people come to me, that a lot of people that wanted to start a business, and they don't think it through about the efficacy of that. So I had a woman once who said she wanted to crochet tea cozies and sell them on Etsy and leave her job and support herself that way. Well, I knew from the world of reality that she needed to separate. Like, she could crochet for the rest of her life and have a lot of satisfaction, but that wasn't going to ever create enough money for her. I said, how much do you sell them for? $12. How many hours does it take you to crochet a whole one? 6 hours. Well, okay, well, you're making $2 an hour minus your material costs. So that's not a business. But can you, if crocheting makes your heart sing, and you want to do that, you can do that all you wish, and you can renew yourself, and you should go in the land of ideas more to look at what that gives you. Just don't marry it to your money. So that's my little sidebar caveat for people looking at this later going, why, what is she talking about? There are certain times that you do it, but in our dream creation, in our clarity process, when you let yourself go to the land of ideas and just dream a little bit about what it is you'd like to have happen, there's a process for this. Now, I'm going to do this in a very speedy way. I've done this at length, and it's not possible. I would have had to do like a 4-hour workshop today to do all of it, but I'll give you a hint, and you've got enough to get rolling and running. So in the land of ideas, you create something that we call a soup pot recipe. So you imagine you're making a big vat of soup. It's perfect for you. You can't get it wrong. Every ingredient that you put in are all the qualities of all the things you want to have happen in the new year. And what's great about this is you can put them in and look at the mix and go, oh, I didn't want that one, and it's magic soup. So you can take out anything that you didn't like, so you can change your mind. It's just something that we call your soup pot recipe for what you would most like to happen. And you can make a whole bunch of batches of soup. You can have one for work, that context. You can have one for your marriage or your primary relationship. You can have one as a parent. You can have one for your creative expression. That's fantastic. Or you could put them all in and throw in the kitchen sink soup pot and do them all together. You can do this any way that you want. But we create a soup pot recipe for what you most like to have happen. So you try it on, you're in the land of ideas. There's no limits. There's no rules. There's no, you're too old to do this. There's no, nobody will let you. There's no, even your protective parts of somebody, someone will be mad if you had all that money, or you looked that beautiful, or you lost all your weight, or you had the great marriage, or whatever it is. My sister would be jealous. My mother would be mad. We set all that to the side because we waved our wand. In the land of ideas, you can have all of it without repercussions. And that's what we need to do in order to get clarity. So you throw all the things in the pot. Now, I'm curious, Jolene, is there anything odd here or any questions that I need to address right here before I continue?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. So then once you have a pretty good, so this is an experimentation process. You put your soup pot together with all the things you'd like to have happen, and then you test it with 7 questions. And this is fantastic because it provides all of the motivation that you need. So you know how sometimes you have a desire for something, but you wonder why it feels kind of flat. You can't really get yourself going on it, or it generates so much self-doubt, all of those kinds of things. Getting really clear and testing it with these 7 questions will provide all the motivation that you need, all the energy that you need, all the oomph to get forward. And I recommend that you play with this here in the new year, because it will just make first of all, we're in the momentum cycle. We're in the biggest unconscious momentum cycle at any point in any calendar year, because you're unconsciously in training with all the people that believe that something new could happen. And at these few first weeks of any new year, there's more openness with all the unconscious minds of all the humans on the planet. There's more openness than usual. So you don't have to feel like you're a salmon swimming upstream, going against the force of everybody else. It's more like you're riding the wave together, or you're on one of those people movers at the airport that just helps you go faster and easier along. It's like that. So it pays to spend a little time with a journal or go out in nature and sit and think about this. So what would I like to have happen? Put all the ingredients. If I had it all my own way, when I'm thinking about just me and my agency, what would I like to do? What would I like to create? How would I like to be? What kind of person would I like to be in your soup pot? And then you test it with these questions that sound a little odd, but they're quite useful. And And I didn't put them on here because I didn't want to give it short shrift in this slide, but I'll just tell them here and they're on the recording. So once you've got this, you're like, this is pretty good. This feels good. I think this is my perfect soup recipe. You have another friend ask you this because you want to go to your unconscious. And when you ask a question of yourself and then you answer it, these are different parts of your brain. So it's just more useful to hand this little list to your friend and have them check. And then you just do a gut check. So here's your soup pot. You've got that metaphorically. And then you ask yourself, is this what I need? Your friend says, is this what you need? And you say yes or no. And you just go to your gut, not your head. Yes or no. You're like, oh, why wouldn't I need it? Is this what you want? Is this what you demand? Like, I demand that I get it. Is this what you love? Is this what you wish for? Is this what you dream of? And is this what you live for? And it's really funny because your gut knows the answer to these. So again, we're not going to our head for the answers, but this is sort of a GPS navigating system. And it's as though you were leading a team of horses, and to get to your goal, they all need to be going in the same direction. Like, let's just say you've got seven horses all going in the same direction. But if you get 6 yeses and you get 1 no, and that horse is going in the other direction, you'll never get where you need to go. We said at the beginning that we need congruency. So this little list tests for congruency. And sometimes, and what's beautiful about it is it will unearth more of those dumpster dreams. It will unearth pieces that you haven't remembered for a long time. When I found this in mid 2020, I remember a client said to me, he had a beautiful business and he had all kinds of beautiful marriage and children, and he had things he wanted for all that. But when he got his soup pot together, he felt a little flat about it. So when we asked the 7 questions, I can't remember which one didn't read, but one of them did not read. It was like, well, what's missing? And it called up for him, whatever, or what do I love? I think it was what do I love? And he's like, baseball. Baseball's missing. I grew up playing baseball. I was on teams. I did all that. I let it all go to have my family and have my business. And I said, oh, well, let me ask you a question. If you had absolutely everything in this soup pot now, but you never got to play baseball again, would that be worth it? No, categorically not. Fantastic information. So add baseball in. So what? You're an adult. You can join an adult league. You can find a way to, be with kids baseball, whatever it is, there's a way. And as soon as he did that, as soon as he asked these 7 questions and found the ingredient that was missing, all of a sudden his soup came alive. Like, oh, that was the missing thing. And then that called forward the motivation and the energy and the zhuzh and the whatever was required to go for whatever you need, which is where we're coming next for the next bit where that kind of energy is required. So I hope that that's helpful. Again, one more time. Oh,
Yeah, we did have a couple of questions. So can you repeat the 7 questions again? And then the next question is, what do you do if there are items in your soup pot that appear contradictory?
Ah, very good. Wait to the end of the webinar and then I'll explain that. Fantastic question, because that happens all the time, right? So because that's part of you wants another thing and part doesn't. Or if you think that something that you really, really want, you have unconscious parts that believe it will put you in danger, you're always going to be in conflict. So we're going to talk about how you attend to that later. Fantastic. Thank you for asking. Okay, 7 questions again, as per Charlie Davis. Is that what you need? Is it what you want? Is it what you demand? I'm going to put a caveat there. He's really married to that one. And I've had people get really stuck with the demand question. It's useful and he would hate me, but go with your gut with that one, but at least get these other 6 there. Is it what you love? Is it what you wish for? Is it what you dream of? And is it what you live for? So those are the 7 questions. And once you play this game, and remember, you can put ingredients in your soup pot, you can take them out, you can have separate soup pots, or you can have the one big one. But this is your soup pot recipe from the land of ideas where no everything's possible. There's nothing that is restricting you. Okay, now, this is the part 2 of this presentation. This is the other thing I wanted to bring in to Mary here. We did talk about this last year on New Year's, but it merits a reminder, and it goes so well with getting clear on what it is that you want, and then using the 2 sneaky tools to get around the inner resistance just by even entertaining the idea of you want. So either saying, as you're thinking about your soup pot, now you've gotten clear, and you're thinking about, wow, that would be really fun. So when you say, wouldn't it be nice if blah, 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 everything in your soup pot, or in my idea, and fill that in. Because when you are in the land of ideas, again, it keeps you from being attached. And again, it takes you out of having to go through the filter of reality. So I started to do this quite a bit in the last 2 weeks, even things that I used to think that were impossible for me to achieve. And I just would notice how my whole nervous system would calm down when I say, in my idea, and then whatever the thing is. You can affirm anything when you start it with in my idea, because it's not precluding anything. You're not filtering through not only reality, but you're not filtering through your own nest of limiting beliefs about what you thought was possible for you. So I'm just going to check Jolene and see if any questions came up out of that piece, because it's kind of really important. I really recommend doing both of those, either asking the question of, wouldn't it be nice if, that very gentle question, or saying, in my idea, and using that. It'll be wild what you notice, how different that is than affirming things and the trying to claim and believe something that you don't actually believe at all. So Jolene, are we good, or what's coming up here?
So we have one person who's having trouble imagining how to create the soup pot. And the question is, can we start really small?
Sure, start small. What a fantastic idea. So start small, and what you're checking for is to notice what happens inside you. Does joy begin to bubble up? Does possibility begin to bubble up? Do you feel more alive? And in this next part too, it's going to speak a little bit more to how you access those good feeling places, or how you attend to the inner resistance places that also come up in the body. So thank you for that question. But yes, feel free to start very small.
Now, and here's a related question. What are you trying to promote when you say in my idea? Someone's not sure what that means.
That means it's just like the question of, wouldn't it be nice if? When you say in my idea, you're telling yourself a story. You're making up a new story for your life, and you're affirming it without creating the cognitive dissonance or causing your parts to fight on the inside. So if you have a big dream, you also have parts that have been feeling like you can't have that because it'll put you in danger, or somebody will hate you, or something bad that will happen. All of this is unconscious, by the way. We don't have this up in our top brain knowing, but if you've wanted this desire for a long time and it hasn't come true in your life, it's because there's inner resistance. So when you just say the words to yourself, isn't it nice? It's like a daydream. In my idea, I'm running a marathon and I feel so free. In my idea, I'm a ballet dancer and I just feel alive and I'm spinning and gloriously and loving it that people watch me. Whatever the thing is, it's separating it out. The reason to say the statement is to separate it out from your usual limits and programming. It's a pattern interrupt. It's a paradigm change to put you in an entirely new place, to free up your unconscious parts, to give you more information about what would make that possible, and give you permission to actually live a little, dream a little, be in touch with what it is you really want, rather than the deadened down way that most of us live. So I'm going to keep going and we'll see if this clears it up as we go. Was there anything else, Jolene, or was that good?
Nope, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so how is it that we make our decisions? Because we're making decisions, or we're having choice points all day, thousands of them, at least many, many, many hundreds, usually thousands a day. And they're very unconscious, and we don't notice them. And we repeat the same ones over and over and over every day. But every single choice point is either leading you toward or away from your deepest desires. And that's not to make it heavy, and it's not to make it significant, but it is to show you what happens. It is to show the net effect and the net cost of not paying attention to what choices we're making. So every time you have an impulse, it leads to a choice. You might have an impulse. Now you've got the creative ones. When you're saying in my idea, and you're telling yourself a new story, you will start very quickly Your unconscious parts will assist you. You'll start having impulses to go sit down at the piano or go open your journal and write a little bit. You're going to have creative, renewing impulses that are more in the direction of whatever it is that you've been wanting that you haven't let yourself had. So that's there. But you're also going to have other little impulses in the day because we're in training to other people. It's a stressful time. And most of these are habitual, and most of them, frankly, are doing things like looking at your phone. So to get a dopamine hit. So here's how this goes. We're having no, not millions. We're having many, many, many teeny, teeny, tiny, mostly unconscious choice points in a day. And our animal body generally wants to be soothed. So when there's a choice point and any resistance comes up, which is most of the time, because if it was a happy impulse that you wanted to do, then there's probably another part that thinks that's a bad idea, which is how you haven't achieved it yet. So there's resistance that way. Or there's, I'm just uncomfortable with whatever, with the stress of the day, with the phone call I just got off of, the worry that I have. So the choice will be to seek comfort. And this is what most people do most of the time, all day long. We're looking to soothe that feeling of irritation or resistance on the inside. So most of us are going down a path toward comfort. And we're trying to avoid unpleasant feelings. So we go for the dopamine pleasure hit instead of acting on what we need to do that would allow us to have our bigger lives and really be renewed, really grow and change, and really just put one foot forward after the other and do what we really want rather than what we believe is possible for us. So most of the time we're avoiding facing those unpleasant emotions or sensations, but in truth, any of those emotions, unpleasant emotions or sensations, are just sweet messages from our unconscious parts that are trying desperately to get our attention. And that's the only way that they can get our attention. Please, please listen to me. I have information for you. Please heal this. Please listen to me. And we don't, and then we'll go eat cake, right? Or binge on Netflix or drink, all the things. So this is what we usually do. We delay, deny, distract, avoid, or go fuzzy. And again, this isn't a wrongness. It's very innocent, but everybody's doing it. They're doing it much, 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 much more than our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation, because we're bombarded with billions of bits of information now. Also, there's something I mentioned on the monthly live procrastination cure call the other day. Someone asked about this. Well, why is gaming, like gaming, for example, why is that not renewing thing? Why is that, what would you call that, deny or distract? Because our brains and nervous systems were not designed to have this kind of stimulation. As my good friend said yesterday on a post, we are catastrophically overstimulated. And it's true. So if you think about it, this is one little distinction to put as a seed in here today. There's a term for this calling context changes. So 3 generations back, your great grandparents that were on a homestead someplace, that they had a farm, and they only had like 3 or 4 context changes in a day. So one was when they left the home to go from the cabin to outside into nature to go work the fields. Then maybe one was coming back to for lunch, go out again, or come back for dinner and have a meal. That's a context change. Everything in your nervous system and your eyeballs, and it all shifts. And then they'd have their dinner, and maybe it's read with the kids at night, by the lamp, and then go to bed, be intimate with your partner. These are context changes, right? They're life-giving. They're part of how we were designed. Our brains and nervous systems were never meant to do this. To go to TikTok, there's so many context changes in one minute video on TikTok. It's staggering. So we're bombarded and our nervous system is like this and we don't know what to do. So what do? Then it becomes habitual because that gets linked to a dopamine hit. We do get a dopamine hit with every one of those changes. And the habit is to just run to our electronics to soothe ourselves. But it's a terrible viral loop, and it's more addictive than heroin. So we think we're getting pleasure. Our animal body's trying to get pleasure and soothing, but instead what we're really getting is delay, deny, distract, avoid, or go fuzzy. Now, anything that you do to move into a renewing activity, your creativity, your writing, your singing, your speaking, your coaching, your art, your walking in nature, you're being with a friend, you're creating a renewing experience, that's renewing. You can do as much of that as you want. That's not avoid, deny, repress, right? But these other things are. So this, I'll keep going here. You have this impulse. Oh, here we just talked about it. Look at your phone, eat a snack, worry. Sometimes we have habits of worry. We get into the worry cycle, and you wouldn't think that that would soothe you, but in fact, it's so familiar that many people have just cultivated the habit of worrying to soothe themselves because it's familiar. But we need to get off that track if you want to have the life that you really desire, and move away from the way most people do it and go toward being uniquely you, making the contribution you wanted to make when you came here. Scroll social media, turn on Netflix. I like Netflix, but not all the time. And a judging habit, either other people or ourselves. Usually it's ourselves. So in your day, this is what happens. You have an impulse, you make a little unconscious choice, you go toward comfort to soothe yourself, hide, deny, suppress, and you end up with this. All you can have is the same outcome you've had up until now, or worse. That's all you get. It's never going to be better. You're never going to be moving toward your bigger life if you are going toward the comfort cycle all the time. And the reason it's worse is because time keeps rolling by. Now, there's another way to do this. I don't like this combat war metaphor. So when I heard this presentation last year, this is pretty special because the guy that laid this out this way, the coach that did that, charges, he only reveals this information to his clients that pay $20,000 or more. And he had never revealed it any place, and he didn't plan to do it on the thing that I saw. I was not a $20,000 client, but he did reveal it, and I could tell it was so powerful that I wanted to bring it to you. So I brought it in a different way last year, but now I see more clarity when you add the soup pot and the clarity defining process and the two sneaky ways, the question, I'm not thinking, wouldn't it be nice if, or in the land of ideas, in my idea, I'm, when you add those two pieces that circumvent a lot of the inner fighting, inner resistance, then you can play this game in a more robust way and an easier way. So anyway, he used this combat metaphor, which if you know me at all, you know that's antithetical to how I live and work. And we don't fight things. We look at the sneaky brain hacks to get underneath the tripwire in your brain and the alarms so you can get into happy, fast action. So instead of fighting, he was like, you either can surrender to the comfort or you can fight, right? I'm like, to hell with that. We don't need that. But instead, you can look at every choice point where you feel uncomfortable like that. It is a growth opportunity. It really is a growth opportunity. And the invitation that I recommend is that you be with. You just take a moment, have a breath, and be with your inner resistance, which with a new approach, I'm going to explain in just a second. So when you notice this tiny little impulse and you become better at being aware that they're happening, and you realize this is my choice point. So instead of looking at your phone, which we do, Americans look at their phone more than 200 times a day, instead of rewiring and grooving in that habit, you say, oh, wait a minute. This is my invitation to stop something, what's happening on the inside, and just be with it. And you might ask, what wants my attention right now? And stop and have some deep breaths into your belly. What's trying to get my attention? I'm feeling a little jangly. Okay, and I'm feeling a little jangly. I sense that something's feeling a little jangly. Okay. And then just notice that and maybe wave at it a little bit. Like, hi, I see you, I hear you. You don't need to try and fix it right there. You don't need to try and understand it. You're just making contact. You're just being with that thing. You're just being companionable with this part of you that's been trying to get your attention forever. And that makes all the difference. You just stop and breathe with it. Yup, there's tightness in my belly right now. Got it. Thanks for getting my attention. I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to be with it. If you can, you might ask whatever you're sensing in your sensate body to move in front of your body by a couple of feet. If you have a little space and you picture it in your mind's eye in front of you, you might breathe out that discomfort in your belly and notice it in front of you. When you have a little more space, it's a lot easier to help that part. We'll talk about that more. But when you do this, when you be with the resistance, when you say hello to it, often it's just like a toddler that's been pulling on your leg and pulling on your leg and pulling on your leg and wanting your attention. And if you stop and you just give your undivided attention there for a few minutes and let them babble on and say whatever they need, then they'll run off and play like they don't need your attention anymore. So this is what I recommend, because at that choice point, you can say, for example, maybe you wanted to eat in a different way and you didn't want to do sugar. And then there's a stressor, and then you have an impulse to just chomp down on cookies. You can notice that if you keep eating the cookies and you always succumb to that, you're going to go down a path that you don't want to go. But if you stop and you be with it, okay, I don't need to fight it. I don't need to hit that impulse over the head with a club. I don't need to, be really mean back at that impulse, because that's using willpower and it's just going to fail you pretty quickly anyway. You're just going to be with it, just noticing, okay, that's really strong impulse to want cookies. Okay, I'm going to see if I could delay rather than deny. I'm going to see if I could wait a little bit. I'm just going to stay being with this feeling. And very often it will move, it will change. And when you keep doing this, you can see there was a little fork in the road there. And always, this is going to move you in a direction of something new, because it's not the habit, and a place better than you were. It has to be. Even if it's uncomfortable, you're going to get new information, which is going to lead you on a better path. So what happens very quickly over time is a gap starts to happen. You're either moving toward comfort and you get the same and it's worse. And the piece that we mostly don't see is that time keeps rolling forward. So when it's true all through life, but really in particular, when you're say 40 and above, the math is such that you're always in every moment at every choice, either moving in the direction of your bigger, happier, more fulfilled life, or you're moving away from it. That's the hard truth. We don't want to think that. I'm going to say it again. Every moment that you're at one of these tiny, teeny little unconscious choice points, you're either behaving and moving in the direction of your bigger life, or you're moving in the direction away from it. You're not neutral. And the lie that we tell ourselves, the thing we think, we believe down to our toes, is, well, this is just neutral and I will get to it later. But in fact, there's a momentum that's happening in each direction. So if you could get good at this skill, at becoming really aware and really noticing where you are and noticing these teeny tiny choice points, and then allowing yourself to not beat yourself up, not harness a bunch of willpower, but just stop, pause, slow down, take a breath, and just be with whatever inside you is trying to get your attention. All these parts, all of them have a positive intention for you. They may have opposite ideas about how to go for it, which is our question from before, right? If it feels like these are in conflict, but they all want you to be happy and healthy. They just have different ideas about how to get there. And I will explain what we do with that in a minute. So you're never neutral. As I said, you're always moving toward or away from your happiest life. That's just how this goes. This is the hard truth to look at as our lives go by and aging. It's happening to everybody. It's natural, it's human, but this is the thing. So over time, this gap gets wider and wider and wider, which is how it can be that later in life, you can feel like you've gone off course. And it's also why, sadly, the majority of people get to the end of their life with tremendous regrets, because they didn't see that they were moving off path in this way. They didn't see that it wasn't leading to where they wanted, because they always thought they'd get it later. There's a little sidebar in here that many of you have heard me talk about before, but it's not widely spoken about. And it's an unconscious bias called, not conviction bias. What's my word? I can't believe it just went out of my head. But you are, if you're listening to the sound of my voice right now and you're thinking that, well, I don't care about these little arrows in this picture, and I don't care what she says of what is true about other people, because I'm absolutely positive that I'm going to get to my goal, right? Oh, it's certainty bias. There it is. Certainty. I'm certain that it's going to happen for me, because you have a particular feeling in your body. It's kind of core, it's central, it's strong, it's a yes. And you're just sure that you're going to get to your big life goals. You're going to achieve all your dumpster dreams. But in fact, what we know is that feeling, that sensation in the middle isn't actually accurate. It is a brain adaptation and a nervous system adaptation to keep us from being in rubber rooms, banging our head on the wall because our caveman brain can't stand the unknown. And the truth is you're going to have to walk into the unknown all the time. That's where all the juice is, to have the big life that you want, to have everything that you want. But the caveman brain hates that. So this is a modern day brain adaptation to make up for the fact that we're not in little cabins working on the farm like our great grandparents were, that we now have the internet and all these things. So it gives you this feeling of certainty. And what happens when you have certainty bias coupled with this pattern of comfort, 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 hide, deny, suppress, avoid, the resistance? It leads to the end of your life going, what the hell happened? How did this happen to me? Because if it leads to complacency over the trail, because you don't want to take the actions that would lead to you having everything you want, because there's this feeling of certainty that I don't have to worry about it. It's going to happen someday because I'm just sure, but it won't. Statistics tell us that most people don't ever achieve it, and they're shocked and they feel like they got duped at the end of their life and they have big regrets. This is a way around it, is to face this now. So this is the gap. Now, I'm not asking you to try and be 100% perfect, because that's crazy. And we all need to have soothing sometimes, and we all need to have comfort. And sometimes we just need to walk away from the stress. So what we're aiming for is about 80% of the time to be moving in the direction of being with your resistance and just stopping the habit of those behaviors. And about 20% of letting yourself do the soothing. And it doesn't have to be immediate. It will get better over time, because you're going to have so much joy and so much agency. Besides which, if you took the time to create your soup pot recipe, oh my God, you'll have so much momentum and juice and desire that it fuels being able to go up that other path. It fuels being able to make new choices and do things in a different way. So, now, the new tool combo. So this is what I'm seeing now that's very different than what we've done. As you know, I have many, many models. I operate from 20 or more different models that I scour the earth to find that were good, because I had such a huge amount of healing to do, because I came from such a weird and violent upbringing. So I scoured the earth and I took all the pieces, and I only took the little actionable bits, and I threw away all the stuff that didn't help me heal, put them together in a new recipe, and it continues to iterate and evolve over time. And now where we've landed in the last 6 months is this is the blend of the 6 models that I'm moving currently that has people going the fastest than I've ever seen in my life, frankly. So we have Eugene Gendlin's focusing tool, where he focuses on the whole felt sense of something. You could go to, I think it's Google focusing or focusing.org, right? And they have lots of free resources. There's also the book, although I had read that book, it was from the 70s and went worldwide, but I couldn't really get it until this year. And one of his proteges made a distinction, and that's what we're using in my with my private coaching clients in the Procrastination Cure Club, with groups that I run. That's what we're using. So there's that, which gives you such a main line into hearing what your unconscious parts are telling you without all the agita, without all the upset. So that tool, coupled with our beautiful reclamations from Peter Koenig that we did the whole series with in April and May. I did it with Peter. He came out of retirement. We did it with Nadia. It's really, really quite beautiful. And when you marry those two things together, my God, is that a powerhouse? So that's a new distinction that happened this last fall. Gendlin's focusing plus use with Peter Koenig's reclamations plus the internal family systems parts work of Richard Schwartz, which is fantastic. That saved my life. Plus somatic experiencing. We go to the body, we stay out of the top brain, so that, and then working directly with the unconscious parts via Ericksonian hypnosis and NLP. So somehow this little blend, I'm, to the best of my knowledge, I'm the only coach on the planet using this particular blend, because these have been obscure, these things, and a bit of clean language I didn't even put there, thrown in here and there, because the metaphoric model speaks with your unconscious mind. So that's what we're seeing, is that it's supercharged, and people are really getting extraordinary gains. And we have free resources for you. Just a second about getting more of this. I've talked about all of these things, but there's more about this. But I wanted to show you as a reminder this picture of compounding interest. So funny, like most of us have heard that story about a penny that doubles all the time. So which would you rather have? Would you rather have $1 million or a penny that doubles in value every day for 1 month? And if people haven't heard this story before, they generally say, oh, I want the $1 million. But in fact, the teeny tiny little bits, the little teeny tiny actions, the little teeny tiny things that are changing, it's just like compound interest, and they grow over time. So if you look at this chart with the penny doubling, it doesn't even get to surpass the $1 million until day 28. So it looks for a long time like nothing's happening, unless you are surrounded by an environment that feeds back to you all the changes that they see. Because trust me, the people around you, when you start to put this into practice, when you make your teeny tiny little choice points, and you don't look at your phone, and you don't do the drugging thing, and you don't go watch porn, and you don't have a drink, and you sit with your feelings, and then you go to the piano, or you open your journal and you write, or you call a friend to make a human connection rather than doing the avoidance activity, it won't probably look like a lot is happening right away. And it might not feel like it's worth it for how much you had to restrain yourself from going to the addictive habit. But if you want to live a life where you're not living like a robot or an automaton or a lemming, or just in training with everybody and doing that, that's kind of where so much of society is going, because nobody ever talked about this, and nobody gave us the information. But if in fact you will just keep doing this, if you can borrow my trust for just a little bit, you will notice that all of a sudden one day it'll be like this penny. It'll all of a sudden be like, whoa, that exploded. All of a sudden everything's easier. These results are easier. And frankly, when you work with the unconscious mind, you need to be dealing with the bits of resistance in terms of putting one foot in front of the other, but your unconscious mind makes this kind of change painless. It's really very painless. We've all been taught no pain, no gain, but in fact, you just notice you're different. You have a new normal. You have a new way to be. It's kind of like, how the hell did that happen? I didn't know. Because you put your pennies in every day. You made these teeny tiny little choices, and you stayed with, you were being with all the messages that your unconscious wanted to bring to you. You listened to those parts and honored them rather than trying to beat them up or shut them up. You listened and you got the information, and you took a deep breath, and you got brave, and you found your courage, and you did something new. And this is what's on offer here. So notice here at the end, it's more than 5 times as much as what our game was, $1 million or a penny doubled, but it doesn't become apparent until the last 3 days of the month. So that's just a useful metaphor to keep in mind. And get you your answers. And hopefully this has it planted some seeds. As we said at the beginning, this wasn't to go for your top brain. So if you're leaving and your top brain's a little flummoxed, don't worry about it. Your unconscious parts drank it up. And if you're willing to just be with them in that companionable way that we spoke about, rather than beating them over the head with a club and trying to beat them into submission, it doesn't work. One of the things that you'll just create so much more inner harmony by being with them. One of the metaphors I use for most of productivity courses is that they teach you to try and overcome the other parts. You've got the one that you're aligned with, that you want to have your happy thing happen, and then you've got this protective part that doesn't want you to do it, and there's a fight on the inside. Almost every self-help teacher out there promotes overpowering this one, right? Just force it into submission. The good wolf and the bad wolf, and which one do you feed? And force it. Nah, because what actually happens here, what nobody tells you, is when you're pushing this one, all the force that you use, you're actually sending this guy to the gym to beef up. They're always evenly matched. There's no such thing as this one overpowering this one. It can be temporary. You might stuff it into submission and look at your phone enough, to medicate yourself enough to stuff it down for a day or a week or a month. But what comes out later, as you know, is this comes screaming out of the woodwork, and it explodes, and there's a backlash, and you end up worse than you were before. So don't try that approach. But if instead you could be gentle, you could be with, there's that resistance Wendy talked about. What if I didn't run away from it? What if I welcomed it? What if I befriended it? What if I got curious? We all know that curiosity is a main component of the cure. What if we just did that, right? And sat and listened and paused and slowed down and breathed into the belly and got into the sensate awareness of the body and just sat with what was here. What might we discover? So that's what's possible. I want to thank you all for attending. I'm blown away. I will later read all the chat to see all the messages that you sent. I'm wishing everybody here a tremendous new year. Happy, 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 happiest new year. What if all your dreams could come true, or so many of them? And I hope that today was helpful. So mwah, blessings. I love everybody in this community. Thank you, Jolene, for being my co-pilot. I love you to pieces. And with that, we'll call this one done and sign off. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for attending.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Bye.